Okay, we're on Eruvin, Perek Gimel, Mishnah Zayin. So in the previous Mishnah, the Mishnah discussed the case of what happens if I have 2 days, one Yom Tov hasamuch l'Shabbat. Yom Tov and Shabbat, is that one Kedusha or two Kedushot? Meaning, can I make an Eruv going in one direction on one day and another direction on another day? Our Mishnah is going to now step it up a notch until the rest of the parak can discuss the next case, which is what about Rosh Hashanah? We know nowadays Rosh Hashanah has 2 days. But if you think about it, you'll know that according to the Torah, Rosh Hashanah is 1 day. There's no such thing as 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. So why does everybody do 2 days of Rosh Hashanah? So this has to do with the way that Rosh Hashanah falls out in the Jewish calendar. As you know, as we should know, well, we'll describe, what happened was the Jewish calendar was not fixed, but rather there was something they did called Kiddush HaChodesh. Kiddush HaChodesh means that in order to determine a new month, witnesses had to come to the Beit HaMikdash and say, we saw the moon, and since we saw the moon, therefore the Beit Din would go out and say, okay, it's Rosh Chodesh, it's a new month. Now, most months, that's fine. What's the big deal? You just tell people we started a new month, etc. On Rosh Hashanah and Tishrei, it's a real problem, because at the very moment that the witnesses come, they turn that day into a Chag. So, let's say on the 29th of Elul, people show up. Okay, that the 29th of Elul, it wouldn't be the 29th day, but it could happen. So the next day people come, Lamud Elul. So immediately Lamud Elul becomes Aleph Tishrei. They say, okay, it's not Elul anymore, now it's Tishrei. But on the other end, if they didn't show up on Lamud Elul, then they would make the next day Aleph Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah. So Chazal said, whoa, we have a problem. Because if we do that, then what's going to happen is if we make this day into Aleph Tishrei, if we make this day, let's say Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's Thursday. If we make Thursday into Aleph Tishrei, people aren't going to know that it's Rosh Hashanah. And therefore, they're going to be Mechalel Yom Tov. So what do? They said, okay, because we're afraid that people will come, therefore we'll say this is going to be, we'll make this day Rosh Hashanah. Everyone has to keep Rosh Hashanah misafek. And then maybe they didn't make this day, maybe this isn't Rosh Hashanah. Maybe this day is Lamud Elul, okay? And therefore they have to keep Aleph Tishrei misafek. So therefore, since we don't know, nobody knows which day Rosh Hashanah will be misafek. Therefore, we keep both days of Rosh Hashanah. Now, it's important to know that what happened was that Chazal came along and said that this is a very specific kind of chumrah. Because what happened was in one day in the Beit HaMikdash, it happened in the Beit HaMikdash, that witnesses came late on Mincha. And they said, okay, they did Kiddush HaChodesh, and it turns out that day was Rosh Hashanah, and they said the wrong day of, the wrong Shir Shayom of the Beit HaMikdash, was a really big deal. So they came along and said, no matter what happens, we're going to have 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. This day and that day. It's always going to be 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, so that we don't have this confusion about which day is Rosh Hashanah and which day is not Rosh Hashanah. So, it's a Sveka Diyoma in some sense, but once Chazal established the Takana, it's like a super Sveka Diyoma. It's always going to be 2 days of Yom Tov. Now, just so you know, if you look on the internet, which we do, if you look on Elul nowadays, it was established as Tamid Chaser Chodesh. It always has 29 days. So nowadays, you'll always have Chavtet Elul and then Aleph and Bet Tishrei. Both of those days are Rosh Hashanah. Okay? Both Aleph and, I probably should do this. Both of those days are Rosh Hashanah. But I'm not going to do that. We'll take it off. Okay? Just because, for the illustration purposes. So that being said, since it started out as Sveka Diyoma, but it's a takana of Chazal, let's go back to our original question. I have 2 days. Remember, I want to go in both directions. So I'll say, you know what? On the first day of Rosh Hashanah, I want to go to Yesodot. On the second day of Rosh Hashanah, I want to go to Gedera. So I want to put 2 eruvei Techumin. One, remember, this is my center, right? My center is in Yad Binyamin. I can go 2,000 amot in this direction, or 2,000 amot in that direction. And I want to go 4 in each direction. So can I say on one day I want to do one, and on one I want to do another? That's the topic of our Mishnah, and it's the topic of our Machloket. It says the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rosh Hashanah, on Rosh Hashanah, Shaya Yarei Shamatit Aber. I'm afraid, remember this is before, I didn't know, this is before the Takana of Chazal. So I'm in the Beit HaMikdash, and I'm afraid, I don't know, is this day going to be Rosh Hashanah? Or is this going to be Aleph Tishrei? Or is it going to be Chodesh Ibur, a pregnant month? And then there's going to be Lamud Elul, and then it's going to be Aleph Tishrei. So I'll keep it as Rosh Hashanah, but we're going to find out retroactively that the real Rosh Hashanah was the next day. Aleph Tishrei was the next day. Okay, Me'arev Adam, so if I don't, I'm afraid it's going to be Mitaber. So I want to go in both directions. Me'arev Adam Shnei Eruvin. I can make 2 Eruvin. Ve'omer, and I'll say, Eruvi Barishon LeMizrach, Ubesheni LeMa'arav. My Eruv on the first day, on the 29th, is going to be, or the 30th, whatever, is going to be to the east, and the second one is going to be to the west. Barishon LeMa'arav, Ubesheni LeMizrach. First one I'll make to the west, and the second to the east. Eruvi Barishon, or I want to go on the first day, like we did yesterday. Eruvi Barishon, I want to go on the first day with my Eruv, and on the second day, I want to stay in the middle. I want to be here. I want to be able to go anywhere. Okay, Eruvi Barishon, Ubesheni Kibnei Iri. Or Eruvi Besheni, Uberishon Kibnei Iri. So Rabbi Yehuda basically says, I can split it up. I can divide it up. Since it's a question of Sveka Diyoma, one day is Rosh Hashanah and one day is a Chumrah that maybe because it's not Rosh Hashanah. We just don't know which one. So what's the difference? Since it's Sveka Diyoma, I can decide, says Rabbi Yehuda, I have a chart here, I can decide, can I Eruv, the question of can I make an Eruv of Shnei Eruvin, the Shnei Ruchot, Shnei Yamei Rosh Hashanah? Rabbi Yehuda says, Efshar. Why? Shnei Yamin Novi Misafek. Is a Yom Be'emet Chagu. I don't know which one is the Chag. So yes, I keep both days. But Lamod Elul, I keep because it may be Rosh Hashanah. Maybe it's, but if that's true, then the next day is not Rosh Hashanah. Even though I don't know until after we get the telegram from the Beit HaMikdash, etc. V'lo hodu lo Chachamim. The Chachamim did not agree. Why not? The Bartanura says the following. The Kasavrei, the Chachamim held Kedusha Achat Hein. Both days of Rosh Hashanah are Kedusha Achat, right? And the Halacha is Kechachamim b'shnei Amim Tovim shel Rosh Hashanah. This is how we paskin. On the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, Dilav mishum sveka bilvad itkan. It's not only, this is what I explained before, that it's only because of sveka diyoma that they were mitakein, they instituted. Shema kidshu beitin at yom shloshim or yom lamed aleph. Maybe the 30th day is Rosh Hashanah, or the 30th first day. Ve'echad mehem chol, and one of them is chol. Ella, rather, mishum shema ba'edi mina mincha ulamala, because the Chachamim said maybe the witnesses would come. This is what I explained before, after mincha. Shenoagim ayu oto yom kodesh ulamachar kodesh. And because of this reason, Chazal made that day, the first day, kodesh, and the next day, kodesh. Vitravayu, and they're both kedusha achat. In the language of the Gemara, it's called, where am I? Yoma arichta. The 2 days are halachically one long day. But he adds, Av Abishaya Mim Tovim Shel Galio. But let's say you're 2 days of Pesach and Rosh Hashanah in Teaneck, or in Brooklyn, Delo itkat ela misveka, that is real sveka diyoma, because they didn't know, Delo yadinu matai kitchu beinu gadol et hachodesh, the takana of shnei avim tovim in Chutz La'aretz is misum sveka diyoma, then modim chachamim the Rabbi Yehuda shtei kedushotem. Then the chachamim would agree with Rabbi Yehuda. So, in the case of shnei yomim tovim, if I want to go, not in Yad Binyamin, I want today one day of Yom Tov in one direction and one in the other direction, efshar. For sure, Rabbi Yehuda, because he says in Rosh Hashanah you could. But even Chachamim would agree that you could do this on Yom Tov Sheni Shel Galio. Go one day in one way and one day in the other way, and say, listen, on the first day, I'm only doing it if it's Rosh Hashanah, Pesach. Great. Then my Eruv counts. And then the next day, I don't need an Eruv. And vice versa on the second day as well. In the next Mishnah, we're going to learn other halachic ramifications of this discussion of whether Rosh Hashanah is one day or Rosh Hashanah is 2 days. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to contact me at rspolter@gmail.com. I will dedicate our learning to the memory of my father, Rab Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. Have a great day.